So the question now becomes, how does the RV ban restrictions removal in the state of California, how does that now affect Maryland? And I want to go into detail about that because there are a few important details with respects to Maryland that you need to understand when it comes to RV purchasing and the rollback of legislation in California. And I'm going to bring that to you right now.
When he speaks from the heart and tells it like it is, we call that unscripted. Welcome to Unscripted from Hanging with the Hazes.
So, let's talk about Maryland. So, Maryland, though directly did not go with California, they did. And what they did was an adaptation to California's Advanced Clean Cars Act 2, okay? The ACC 2. And it's a regulation which mandates a shift to 100% electric vehicle sales by 2035. Now, it has been recognized by the administration under Governor Moore to not do this because it requires manufacturers to increase electric vehicle sales and basically lead to a decline in gas-powered vehicle sales and an ultimate shutdown because people can't afford electric vehicles. It's just what it is in the state of Maryland. Now, what happened was Maryland decided to follow California's lead in this. And in following California's lead and trying to mimic this 100% passenger car and light truck sales to be electric by 2035, it put a nasty taste in a lot of Marylanders' mouths, and they've spoken against it. Now, the way that they wanted to do it in Maryland is to prioritize EV production and sales, basically trying to open the margin of EV sales available to the public while reducing petroleum-based sales over a duration of time. The one thing with Maryland that is the problem, which is probably in most states, the infrastructure is not there to handle that many electronic vehicles pulling power off the grid. And so what has happened, places like Carroll County, Frederick County, I'm even going to go as far as to say portions of Montgomery County, definitely Garrett County, Washington County. These areas are now having to do massive updates to their electric grid, running power lines past people's houses and things of that nature to support this concept. And they've gone against it. They're not for it. It's not happening. In fact, the companies that were contracted to do the work have basically had contracts canceled because of that. So Maryland is facing a huge pushback, even though Baltimore County, City, portions of Anne Arundel County, PG County, and Montgomery County basically pick our government. Those areas can't support it. But in order for this to be a widespread Maryland issue, all the other counties have to be on board. And out of the 23 counties in Maryland, there's a significant amount, we're going to say 19 at this point for sure, that are not for it. And therefore, because they won't let the power company come in and do the things that they need to do because of the cost up front that they're not going to recoup back quickly, the whole mandate has been basically halted. Now, the purpose of this is to make an attempt to, I guess, be more conscious of emissions. Now, the state of Maryland, you have to go through an emissions test for certain vehicles under a certain weight every so often. Motorhomes, for the most part, are exempt from it because of their weight. However, I do know some motorhomes, especially your smaller Class Bs, they are not exempt from it. Thus, they are going to get targeted much faster than the larger vehicles when it comes to aggressive emissions standards. Now, let's look at this. If Maryland goes ahead and follows the California newest clean car standards, they are anticipating 43% of the new cars sold at auto dealerships in the state of Maryland will have to be electronic vehicles by 2027. You do the math. You count the coins in your pocket. Is that going to happen? No, it ain't. The percentage then would be expected to go up gradually in subsequent years until 2035, where the entire fleet on a dealership lot is going to have to be an EV. So, with that being said, the bottom line is the Alliance for Automotive Innovation have come out and just said flat, Maryland can't afford its impending gas vehicle ban. It can't do it. So, let's talk about that in just a second. All right, we're back. Now, let me put something in perspective for you when it comes to the state of Maryland and these EV sales, okay? And once we do that, I think you'll have a better understanding of why the pushback is where it is. As of today, 2025, today is April 1st, 2025, the EV market share is about 12%, give or take. So that is a 3.5-fold increase they are expecting next year. Notice I said expecting. I didn't say it was going to happen. And then the EV sales get ridiculously higher from there. So in model year 2028, they want 51% of vehicles sold on dealers' lots to be electric, 59% in 29, 68 and 30, and then that increases until 2035, where they basically want to prohibit any gas-powered vehicle. And 100% of new vehicle sales in Maryland must be electric. That is their goal. Now, I want to answer a question. How did the gas vehicle ban happen? Well, it's very simple. There are two sets of vehicle emission standards in the United States, okay? Washington and the Environmental Protection Agency oversee one program, which is the California Air Resource Board, who sees the other. Okay, so you got Washington and the EPA over one, California Air Resource Board over the other. Let's everybody take a moment and let's thank the wonderful state of California again. Yeah, wonderful California. Now, I don't know how to say this. So, in a quirk, for lack of a better word, of the Clean Air Act, states get a choice. You get an option to follow the federal program, which 70+% of the country does, or you can join the California program, which is about another 30% of the states. Remember we talked about that 11 states? That's that 30%. Well, Maryland is one of them, okay, that signed up for California's plan. Now, I want to say this, and it is what it is. It is going to take an absolute miracle for any of these states, specifically Maryland, to follow California to meet these EV sales requirements. And if they continue to press it, it's going to harm consumers, destroy dealerships, and automakers are going to pull out and stop selling in that state. That's what's going to happen. So imagine not being able to buy a Honda in the state of Maryland. You won't be able to buy a Chevy in the state of Maryland. You won't be able to buy a Hyundai Kia product in the state of Maryland. Cars that are affordable, which means Lexus, it means Cadillac, it means Acura. Gone. They're gone. So you're not going to have a luxury market. You're not going to have a market that is going to be set up for the everyday person, for the everyday drive, and the young person trying to make it out of college. It's just not going to happen. Now, to think of EV sale requirements in Maryland as a ratio or a fraction makes it a little bit easier, but you're going to have to dust off your high school math to figure this out. So the numerator is the number of electronic vehicles that must be sold each year. That's that top number over the line. The denominator is the total number of vehicles sold annually. So, using recent electric vehicle trends, and you got to remember sales are growing. About 60,000 EVs are projected to be sold in Maryland in 2027 out of 300,000 total vehicles. Well, that's about 20% of the market in the EV market share. However, understand it's 23 points short of the law's requirement. So one option for automakers to achieve the required EV sale is to shrink the pie. Get where I'm going with that? Pay attention, because here it goes. In other words, if I sell fewer gas-powered vehicles in Maryland, I can make the number, which equates to about 160,000 fewer gas vehicles, because shrinking the pie inflates the proportion of EV sales in the state, and bada bing, bada boom, the EV sale requirement is achieved. That is a recipe to depress economic activity, drive automobile prices through the absolute roof, and obliterate the customer's choice to choose what they want to drive. Now, it will also send Maryland drivers who don't want an electric vehicle for whatever reason, be it they just don't want it, can't afford it, whatever the case, across the border to buy a car in Pennsylvania or Virginia, and basically any state that doesn't follow California's requirement. That's what's going to happen. And every last one of them is a bad option for the state of Maryland. Now, passing a law that requires 100% electric vehicles in 10 years is easy, but there's a massive gap between these EV sale requirements and a customer's expectation that they can still choose what kind of vehicle to drive. Now, the future might be electric. I'll give you that. Here's the bottom line. Maryland ain't ready for the EV mandates. They're not ready for the EV madness. And the people of Maryland that live here aren't ready to absorb the cost that it's going to take to boost the infrastructure for this type of move. Automakers, dealers, especially Maryland drivers, you need to urge Governor Moore to pull Maryland away from California's EV sales requirements, because if you don't, I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to be up for a world of hurt, because it ain't going to work. You're not going to be able to afford it, and you are going to end up eating the cost of this infrastructure in taxes. Pay attention. It's trying to happen now. I'm Crazy Keon, and I'm telling the truth. With that truth, I'm out of here. Funky.
Be sure to join us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and you can always catch us on Facebook and YouTube. Hanging with the Hazes.